Welcome, children. Today, let us do the second chapter of your history. The name of the topic is New Kings and Kingdoms. Let us see what is there in this new chapter. Dear boys, we are going to study about who are the new kings, which are their kingdoms. In class 6, we have learned about ancient traditions. We have seen some small kingdoms such as Harshavardhana Chitra were emerged. I think you remember that. Let us start from there and let us see which are the kingdoms that emerged in India. Who were the rulers? How did they come? So, we are going to learn about all this. Basically, in this space, we can see a map is here, boys. In this map, we can see three empires or three kingdoms are here. They are the Chahamanas, the Palas, and the Gurjara Pratiharas. So we are going to learn about all these kingdoms and their rulers. How did this small kingdom become large kingdoms? Let us learn about it. Many new dynasties emerged after the 7th century. See, boys, after the 7th century, what happened? There are many new dynasties. They appeared. Dynasties means a series of rulers who are from the same family. Map 1 shows the major ruling dynasties in different parts of the subcontinent between the 7th and 12th centuries. Boys, here in the map we can see the major ruling dynasties. Okay, the main dynasties were ruling there in different parts of the subcontinent in between 7th and 12th century. Okay, in between 7th and 12th centuries. Now, let us see the emergence of new dynasties. Emergence means the appear. Okay, to appear. Emergence means to appear. The new dynasties which appear. Let us see those dynasties. Which are those dynasties? By the 7th century, there were big landlords or warrior chiefs in different regions of the subcontinent. See, by the 7th century, there were big landlords. Landlords means person who rents houses or rooms to people for money. They are the owner of vast land. Okay, or warriors. Warriors means a soldier, and a warrior chiefs. Chiefs means person who command or control over an organization in different regions of the subcontinent. Existing kings often acknowledge them as their subordinates or samantas. Here, those kings who are already existed here, they often acknowledge means to accept them as their subordinates, as their superior here, okay boys, or samantas. Samantas It was a name given to big landlords or warriors, chief in different regions of the Indian subcontinent. They were expected to bring gifts for their kings and landlords, kings or landlord or overlords, be present at their courts and provide them with military support. So, area that means which was ruling by a king, he himself he keeps some samantas there, and they were expected in order to bring gifts for their kings or overlords. Overlords means rulers. That means it denotes to that king. So, particularly that king, he cannot, that means, look after the entire part of his kingdom. So, he makes some samantas, where that samantas they used to look after their several parts. So, and they were expected to bring gifts for their kings or overlords. These samantas they have to give gifts to their kings or overlords, be present at their courts and provide them with military support, and moreover warrior there. Okay, in the samantas it is included. What they used to do, they used to provide the king with military support. As samantas gained power and wealth, they declared themselves to be Mahasamanta. See, boys, as samantas were made by the king, when these samantas they gained power, okay, and wealth means property or money. After that, they declared themselves to be Mahasamanta. Okay, here they themselves they used to declare as Mahasamanta. Maha Mandaleshwara, that is the great lord of the circle or region, and so on. So the circle or region where they were the Samantas, they were looking for that very areas. What happened when they become rich and powerful? Okay, they declare themselves to be Mahasamanta or Mahamandaleshwara. That means the great lord of the of a circle or region. They become here great lord of that part of the area where they are looking after, and so on. Sometimes they asserted their independence from their overlords. See, sometimes these Mahasamanta or Mahamandaleshwara, what they used to do, they used to declare their independence from their overlords, from their rulers. Okay, they deny, that means to give gifts, or they declare themselves the area where they are looking for, that means that area will belongs to them, and they will be the king of that very particular area. One such instance was that of the Rashtrakutas in the Deccan. So, one such example it happened here. Instance, it was that of the Rashtrakutas in the Deccan. The word Deccan, it means, boys, the south. Okay. In the south, these Rashtrakutas, it is an example as they began to rule there. Initially, they were subordinate to the Chalukyas of Karnataka. Okay, the beginning, boys, they were superior to the Chalukyas of Karnataka, these Chalukyas dynasties of Karnataka. In the mid 8th century, Dantidurga, a Rashtrakuta chief, overthrew his Chalukya overlord and performed a ritual called Hiranyagarbha, literally the golden womb. So, see here, in the mid 8th century, in the middle of 8th century, okay, what happened? Dantidurga, a Rashtrakuta chief, Dantidurga was a Rashtrakuta chief. He overthrew his Chalukya overlord, Chalukya ruler. He overthrew and he performed a ritual. Ritual means a ceremony, okay, called Hiranyagarbha, okay, literally the golden womb. Okay, it was a system, it was a ceremony, okay, boys. Before that means becoming a king, this type of rituals were used to take place, okay. So literally it meaning the golden womb. When this ritual was performed with the help of Brahmanas, it was thought to lead to the rebirth of the sacrificer as Kshatriya, even he was not one by birth. Generally, Kshatriya used to rule, okay, the areas, but when this ritual was performed with the help of Brahmanas, it was thought that it led to uh, the rebirth of the sacrificer, the person or a religious person who offers up sacrifice, and he is converted as Kshatriya here. Even if he was not one by birth, even that means that person is not a Kshatriya from his birth, but with the help of these rituals, okay, or sacrificer, he himself used to convert as Kshatriya. In other cases, men from enterprising families use their military skills to carve out kingdoms. On the other ways, boys, men from enterprising families, here they use their military skills to carve out kingdoms. Carve out means to establish or create through painting, okay, effort. For instance means as example, the Kadamba Maurya Sharman and the Gujarat Pratihara Harichandra were Brahmins who gave up their traditional professions and took to arms, successfully establishing kingdoms in Karnataka and Rajasthan respectively. See boys, there is no such thing that a Brahmin cannot become a ruler here. So it says here as example, the Kadamba, Maurya Sharman and the Gurjara Pratihara Harichandra they were Brahmins. They belongs to Brahmins community, but they gave up their traditional, okay, professions. Traditional profession means long established profession which they practiced from long back. So they gave up that traditional profession and they took to arms, successfully establishing kingdoms. Then they were successfully establishing their own kingdom in Karnataka and Rajasthan. In this way, the first one, okay, Kadamba Mayura Sharman was there in Karnataka, and Gurjara Pratihara Harichandra, they are in Rajasthan respectively. In this way, Administration in the kingdoms. Okay, how was the administration? How was that means office? It was functioning in the kingdoms. Let us see. Many of these new kings adopted high sounding titles such as Maharaja, Adhiraja, Great King, Overlord of Kings. Then Tribhuvana Chakravartin, Lord of the Three Worlds, and so on. So many of these new kings, they got what? High sounding titles as Maharaja Adhiraja, which is known as Great King, Overlord of Kings, means overlord of, here ruler of kings, who can rule over the king. Then Tribhuvana Chakravartin, Tribhuvan Chakravartin means Lord of the Three Worlds. Three Worlds, okay, is Lord, is owner, and so on in this way. However, in spite of such claims means here boys, it means assert or assume. However, in spite of such assume or assert, they often shared power with their samantas as well as with associations of peasants, traders, and brahmanas. See here, however, in spite, though, see here, such assert, they often shared power with their samantas as well as with associations of persons. Persons means person who owns or rents a small piece of land on which he or she grows crops and keep animals to feed his or her family. Traders, business persons, and Brahmins. In each of these states, resources were obtained from the producers. So, in each of the these states, boys, resources earning these were obtained from the producers, those who used to produce. Okay, that is peasants, cattle keepers, artisans who were often persuaded or compelled to surrender part of what they produced. Here in each of these states, boys, resources they were obtained from the producers, from farmers, boys, from cattle rearers, cattle keepers, artisans. Artisans means a person who makes things skillfully, then who are often persuaded or compelled, they forced to surrender some part of what they produced. Sometimes these were claimed as rent due to a lord who asserted that he owned the land. So sometimes whatever that means it was collected from them, these were claimed as rent. It is because of due to a lord who asserted that he owned the land. It is because of uh, the lord or the owner who asserted that he owned the land. Revenue was also collected from the traders. By the way, taxes also used to collected from different traders. See, have a look this one, boys. 400 taxes you get through this one, you read it. Then these resources were used to finance the king's establishment as well as for the construction of temples and forts. But whatever revenue it collected or amount collected from different persons there, these resources they were used in order to finance the king's establishment as well as for the construction of temples, forts, etc. Okay. Forts means strong buildings. Okay. That are fixed for military defense. They were also used to fight wars which were in turn expected to lead to the acquisition of wealth in the form of plunder and access to land as well as trade routes. They were also used to fight wars. Battle also they were used, which were in turn expected to lead acquisition. Acquisition means the act of obtaining or buying of wealth in the form of plunder. Plunder means the action of stealing from people, okay, or places, especially during war or fighting, and access to land as well as trade routes. The functionaries for collecting revenue were generally recruited from influential families and positions were often hereditary. Here, the functionaries for collecting revenues, the work of collecting revenues, these were generally recruited from influential families. Influential means powerful, okay? So they were recruited from powerful families and positions were often hereditary, okay? Position, it comes from heredity, one's own hereditary. This was true about the army as well. In many cases, close relatives of the king held these positions. In many cases, close relatives of the king held such positions. Now let us see prashastis and land grants. That is prize and land grants. Let us see. Prashastis contain details that may not be literally true, but they tell us how rulers wanted to depict themselves as valiant, victorious warriors. For example, see Prashastis. It contains details that which is contained in it. It may not be literally true. Okay, but they tell us how these rulers they wanted to depict means to show themselves as valiant. Valiant means full of courage. Okay, then victorious, then victorious warriors. For example, warriors means fighters. These were composed by learned brahmanas who occasionally helped in the administration. These were composed by well-known brahmanas, well-educated brahmanas who occasionally helped in the administration, who occasionally used to help in the control or act of managing, okay, something like that. That is called administration. The achievements of Nagavatta, many rulers describe their achievements in Prashastis. You read about Prashasti of the Gupta ruler Samudragupta last year, okay? About these Prashastis boys, many rulers they describe their achievements in Prashastis. What achievement they met, what they got. Okay, many rulers they describe in Prashastis. You read about the Prashastis of the Gupta dynasty or ruler, that is Samudragupta last year in class 6. One Prashasti written in Sanskrit and found in Gwalior, Madhya Pradesh, describes the exploits of Nagavatta a Pratihara King as follows. So one process is which is written in Sanskrit. It is written in Sanskrit language and it was found in Gwalior of Madhya Pradesh, in which it describes the exploits. Exploits means the to treat unfairly. Okay, exploits treat of treat unfairly of this Nagavatta, a Pratihara king as follows. The king of Andhra, Shindava, that is Sindh, Vidarbha, part of Maharashtra, and Kalinga, part of Orissa, fell before him, even as he was a prince. He won a victory over Chakrayuddha. Okay, victory means success in winning a battle. Okay, here you see Chakrayuddha was the ruler of Kanauj. He defeated the king of Vanga. So Vanga is the name of Bengal boys. So he overcome the king of Bengal. Anartha, that is part of Gujarat. Malava, part of Madhya Pradesh. Kirata, forest people. Then Turushka, that is Turks. Batsha, Matsya, both kingdoms in North India. Kings often awarded Brahmanas by grants of land. During those days, boys, king they used to often, they always, that means rewarded Brahmanas with grants of land. Some land, that means they used to gift it to the Brahman as reward. These were recorded on copper plates, which were given to those who received the land. So these were recorded on copper plates, which land has given to whom. Okay. Okay, just get through this one. This you see what was given with the land. This is part of the Tamil section of a land grant given by the Cholas. Okay, it is a Tamil section, part of Tamil. Here, a land which is grant given by the Cholas. Let us see. We have demarcated the boundaries of the land by making earthen embankments as well as by planting thorny bushes. Here we have demarcated. Demarcated means marking of limited, okay, boundaries of that land by making earthen embankments. Okay, earthen embankments they made here to show its boundary as well as by planting thorny bushes. Okay, especially in the rural areas, boys. This type of marking the land still it is persisted. Okay, so by planting thorny bushes, thorny shrubs, okay, like a rose, okay, bush, etc., in order to show the boundary. This is what the land contains: fruit bearing trees, waterland, gardens and orchards, trees, wells, open spaces, pasture land, a village, ant hills. Ant hills means was a nest in the form of a mound built by ants or termites. Okay. Then platforms, canals, ditches. Ditches means trench. Rivers, shift laden land. Laden land here see ditches, rivers, then silt laden land, sand and clay. Means here tanks, granaries. Granaries means golden where goods are kept. Fish ponds, beehives, and deep lakes. He who receives the land can collect taxes from it. Okay, he who receives the land can collect taxes from this thing. He can collect the taxes imposed by judicial officers as fines. The tax on betel leaves, that on woven cloth, as well as on vehicles. So from this different thing, that means he can collect taxes. He can build large rooms with upper stories made of baked bricks. Okay, this authenticity has also given to build large rooms with upper stories with different stories made of baked bricks. He can get large and small wells dug. He can plant trees and thorny bushes. If necessary, he can get canals constructed for irrigation. So such privileges has given to him. He should ensure that water is not wasted and that embankments are built. So he must be sure that what that water is not wasted here and that embankments are built here. Unusual for the 12th century was a long Sanskrit poem containing the history of kings who ruled over Kashmir. It was composed by an author named Kalhana. So you see boys, that Sanskrit poem, it was composed by an author. An author wrote it. The name of that author is Kalhana. He used a variety of sources, including inscriptions, documents, eyewitness accounts, and earlier histories to write his account. So here he himself he used a variety of sources, different sources he used. It is including inscriptions, documents, eyewitness. Eyewitness means a person who has seen something happen and can give a first hand description of it. Eyewitness accounts and earlier histories to write his account. Unlike the writers of Prashastis, he was often critical about rulers and their policies. Okay, unlike the writers of Prashastis, he was always critical about rulers and their policies. Warfare for wealth. You may have noticed that each of these ruling dynasties was based in a specific region. Boys, here you may have noticed that each of these ruling dynasties were ruling there. It was based in a specific or particular region. At the same time, they tried to control other areas as they were ruling there. Meanwhile, they tried to control other areas. One particularly prized area was the city of Kanauj in the Ganga Valley. So one shall see here particularly, namely one prized area, it was the city of Kanauj in Ganga Valley. For centuries, rulers belonging to the Gurjara, Pratihara, Rashtrakuta and Pala dynasties fought for control over Kanauj. See, for several centuries, boys, the rulers who were belonging there in Gurjara, Pratihara, then Rashtrakuta and Pala dynasties, they fought to control over Kanauj. Because there were three parties in this long drawn. Okay, see here, it is because of there were three parties. Okay, so in this a long drawn conflict, historians often describe it as the tripartite struggle. Historians, they always describe it as the tripartite struggle, the fight which was happening between the three. Tripartite struggle. Let us see the constant rivalry between the Palas, the Gurjara, Pratiharas, and the Rashtrakutas has been termed the tripartite struggle here, boys. As we will see here, PP 62 66 rulers also tried to demonstrate their power and resources by building large temples. As we will see here, boys, these rulers, they also tried to demonstrate, they want also try to show their power and resources by building large temples. How rich is that person? How is the how powerful is the ruler? It was shown by building large temples. So when they attacked one another's kingdoms, they often choose to target temples, which were sometimes extremely rich. So when anybody happened to attack one another's kingdoms, there at first they choose their target at first temples, okay, which were sometimes extremely rich. You will read more about this in chapter number 5. Okay, you will learn about this in details in chapter number 5. One of the best known of such rulers is Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni of Afghanistan. So one of the best known of such rulers is Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni, Afghanistan. Okay, was ruling there in Afghanistan. He ruled from 997 to 1030 and extended control over parts of Central Asia, Iran, and the northwestern part of the subcontinent. So Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni, here what he has done, he ruled from 997 to 1030 and he extended control over parts of Central Asia, Iran, and the northwestern part of the subcontinent. He raided the subcontinent almost every year. His targets were wealthy temples, including that of Somnath, Gujarat. Okay, so you see here, Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni. Okay, he raided. Raided means attack, boys. Attack the subcontinent almost every year. He used to attack this subcontinent almost in every year. And his targets were wealthy temples. Okay, rich temples was his target, including that of Somnath of Gujarat. Okay, Somnath temple also included there in his target. Much of the wealth Mahmud carried away was used to create a splendid capital city at Ghazni. So much of the property which was carried by Mahmud of Ghazni, it was used to create a splendid means very good or excellent capital city at Ghazni. Sultan Mahmud was interested in finding out more about the people he conquered and entrusted a scholar named Al Biruni to write an account of the subcontinent. Sultan Mahmud, he was interested in finding out what more about the people whom he conquered and entrusted means to make somebody responsible for something. Okay, a scholar named Al Biruni to write an account of the subcontinent. So this scholar whose name was Al Biruni, he uh, entrusted that person, okay, to write an account of the subcontinent which he conquered. The Arabic work known as the Kitab al-Hind remains an important source for historians. So the Arabic work, which is known as Kitab al-Hind, it remains an important source for historians. He consulted Sanskrit scholars to prepare this account. So you see here, the Arabic work known as the Kitab al-Hind, it remains an important source for historians in which he consulted Sanskrit scholars here. So Sanskrit, one learned person, was consulted here in order to prepare this account. Other kings who engaged in warfare include the Chahamanas, later known as the Chauhans, who ruled over the region around Delhi and Ajmer. So that means they are in the Rajasthan. Okay, boys. So other kings who were involved or engaged in warfare include the Chahamanas. Okay, were known as later known as Chauhans. Uh, we know the name of Prithviraj Chauhan like that. Okay, who ruled over the region around Delhi and Ajmer. That means this part of Delhi and Ajmer. They attempted to expand their control to the west and the east, where they were opposed by Chalukyas of Gujarat and the Garavalas of western Uttar Pradesh. They tried what? To expand, to extend their control to the west and the east. There they were opposed by Chalukyas. Chalukyas opposed them. Chalukyas of Gujarat and the Garavalas of western Uttar Pradesh, they opposed them. Okay. They opposed, that means this Chalukyas of Gujarat and Garavalas of western Uttar Pradesh, they opposed them. The best known Chahamana ruler was Prithviraj III, okay, who defeated an Afghan ruler named Sultan Mahmud Ghori in 1191, but lost to him the very next year in 1192. Here, the best known among these Chamana ruler was Prithviraj III, okay, who won an Afghan ruler named Sultan Mahmud Ghori in 1191, but lost to him again in the year in the very next year in 1192. So let's up to here for today, boys. Thank you all.